information is great. I love
this intro. Should we respect the intro or talk over it? There we go. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going well. How
I'm
are you,
doing
Joe?
well. I wanted somehow to informally indicate that this is something that you and I do all the time. Get on a Zoom call and talk about NFTs. I guess one good way to launch into that is to talk about what you and I have been doing together for the last few years at a company called ConsenSys, and what could possibly have possessed you, what could have been so captivating to cause you to sort of leave ConsenSys a few short months or weeks ago and launch into a new endeavor.
Sure, sounds great. So as you well know, but for the audience, for the last 4 years, I was leading the protocol engineering group at ConsenSys, which is the low-level group that sort of builds the blockchain protocols. We have an implementation of Ethereum. We're one of the largest teams driving Ethereum 2.0. And then we have an implementation of blockchains dedicated for enterprises that something like 30% of the enterprise blockchain market uses. And over the last few years, I think in the public zeitgeist, most people, when they heard of blockchain, sort of assumed a financial revolution was coming. People talked about disintermediating banks or peer-to-peer finance, or lots of other really exciting, compelling opportunities. But as you know, ConsenSys and others have been working on other applications of blockchain for quite a long time. And NFTs and the recent wave are just sort of the latest culmination of long-standing effort. For me, I was in a weird position where I was deep into tech with you, and then my family is deep in the movie world. And so I sort of pulled in both ways, and I've been bothering my big brother about NFTs and the implications they could have on the movie world for quite some time. And finally convinced him to join forces with ConsenSys and go head first into NFTs. So he's a producer of all the Harry Potter films and Gravity and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and a bunch of blockbusters, and understood the potential that NFTs and blockchain aren't here to revolutionize how we think about finance only. They're really, with NFTs, have the possibility to revolutionize how we think about culture, media, ownership, and the relationship between creators and fans, which is a massive cultural shift and a cultural moment that could have really long reach.
Cool. And another major partner, Joe Hag, is really deep in the European global art world, and we're lucky enough to access his network and to have a bunch of launches lined up. I don't think we can speak about too many of the launches that are being built right now on Palm, but can you describe one or two of them?
Yeah, so the first one we've talked about publicly that Palm NFT Studio is doing is in collaboration with Joe Haig, his company Henny, and Damien Hirst. So it's 10,000 pieces that Damien has made, and we'll be making NFTs around them. I can't dive into the details. Very soon, Damien will be sort of sharing those details with the world himself, and we're excited for him to unveil those. But one exciting thing is that Palm is an open ecosystem. And so anyone can come and deploy on Palm. We're just sort of opening up that ecosystem, but we have our first third party doing their first drop at the moment. And it's the Juventus soccer jersey signed by sort of a number of current and former Juventus stars. And so it's a great example of what you can do with NFTs and how iconic brands like Juventus can reach a new audience, connect with their fans in a different way, and also tap into some cool revenue opportunities. But ConsenSys has been working on this sort of stuff for a long time. When did you first start thinking about NFTs, and how has that journey evolved for you?
So ConsenSys was formed around 6 years ago to pretty much continue the vision and mission of the Ethereum project, and build out the ecosystem. And early on, it was indeed about establishing a new trust layer for the planet. and basically these decentralized protocols can change the nature of trust on the planet, moving it from subjective trust systems, centralized trust systems, to decentralized, automated, objective trust systems. And then it became clear that probably the first kind of infrastructure that this new world, this paradigm shift would require is a decentralized finance infrastructure. And so that's the sort of second layer that's getting built in. And that was heavily contemplated a long time ago. But there are also, and a lot of that involves fungible tokens, so things like cryptocurrencies or other kinds of easily interchangeable digital assets, like shares, for instance. And pretty early on, creative people started thinking that these tokens could be used for identity, decentralized IDs, or verifiable credentials, claims that you make. A driver's license could be perhaps a verifiable credential, and that would be a non-fungible token. People started playing with wrapping game cards in a software object that's an NFT, or wrapping art. Rare Pepes were one of the earliest projects. CryptoPunks was an early project. So basically, the idea was build out this new trust foundation, build out decentralized financial infrastructure, and then the whole world could essentially re-architect itself on new trust foundations. And so we did a few projects. Ujo Music was a project that issued badges, not NFTs, basically, around artists when people made music purchases. We did issue diplomas, graduation diplomas. We ran a ConsenSys Academy session in Dubai and issued diplomas on the blockchain. And Uport, a decentralized ID project that ConsenSys has been working on for a long time, is an early example. We invested in Dada, a beautiful Dada.nyc, a beautiful collaboration art project. And I guess the world of blockchain got almost the first attempt to cross the chasm by our ecosystem was when CryptoKitties hit. And that drove tremendous excitement, lots of collecting and trading, but also drove some really exciting research and innovation into scalability. In terms of scalability, what's Palm's approach? And maybe you could even talk about the ecosystem. So we have some NFT dedicated networks. We have NFT platforms, exchanges. So maybe you can map out that landscape and talk about where Palm is situated.
Yeah, absolutely. So NFTs have been in the works for a long time, and there's been this explosion, obviously, in the last 6 months. But in many ways, the entire ecosystem and infrastructure to support NFTs is fairly nascent and rapidly evolving. There's a bunch of exciting components in play, and a bunch of components that are developing fairly quickly. We fundamentally believe at Palm, and also at ConsenSys, that the Ethereum blockchain ecosystem is the ecosystem to bet on when you talk about blockchain and blockchain solutions. There are other ecosystems that have some interesting approaches that are worth exploring as well. But for us, Ethereum is the one that is best positioned to stand the test of time. It's best positioned to innovate. When people ask me why, it usually comes down to one sentence, which is follow the developers. Ethereum has, I think the latest number I saw was 20 or 30 times more active developers than any other blockchain system. And with that comes innovation and tooling and usage. So the first thing is we're kind of fundamentally committed to Ethereum as an ecosystem. Ecosystems don't need different approaches and different facets. So Ethereum as the base trust layer is rapidly evolving and innovating. There's this thing Ethereum 2.0, which is pushing forward. But today it has a number of challenges when it comes to NFTs, particularly when it comes to maybe low value but high velocity NFTs. And the biggest one that everyone talks about is the transaction costs can be high on Ethereum. So they range from something like $10 to $20 on the low end to we've seen spikes that go very high, $500. Those are unusual. But for a $10 or a $15 trading card to have a $10 transaction fee or $20 transaction fee, it's quite difficult. And then the second challenge in the short term that Ethereum 2 will eliminate is the environmental impact of proof of work-based systems. So, I think there's a rigorous debate to be had on how valid the claims are about Ethereum's environmental impact today. Irrespective of that argument, there's a perception in the market and that creators and brands really care about. And so Palm was set up as a side chain. So sort of a ecosystem that is just next to Ethereum, fully connected to Ethereum, fully interoperable with Ethereum. All the development tools that work on Ethereum work on Palm. All the objects that get put on on Palm can move back to Ethereum. But it has a couple nice properties. The first, in the short term, is really low transaction costs, and the second is a really trivial environmental impact. We achieve that by sacrificing some of the decentralization in Palm, knowing that decentralization is there in Ethereum, but knowing that Palm will work towards a more decentralized model very shortly over the coming weeks. And so Palm is trying to be that infrastructure, that plumbing for the NFTs inside of Ethereum. And then on top of Palm, third parties are coming and deploying marketplaces, coming and deploying APIs, DeFi tools. And then Palm NFT Studio has been launched, which partners with creators, brands, IP owners who want both strategic, creative, and technical help to go ahead and implement their NFT projects. So today, most NFT projects are fairly transactional. You create an art piece or a collectible item, you sell it. It is our hypothesis that in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, the time horizons are always tough to predict, that 95% or more of NFTs will be given away for free, or they'll be earned. There'll be fan engagement tools, fan activation tools, and they'll just be the normal way that creators and fans interact. And so we're trying to work with brands to capture some of those sort of revenue opportunities they're doing in the short term, but really build that strategy for the long run, and be in a winning position in a few years as this technology continues to cross the chasm and become more and more popular and capture an increasing sort of relevance in the creative and media worlds.
Cool. So Palm Network is a new Ethereum technology network. It's connected to Ethereum mainnet by a bridge. It can move tokens back and forth, low cost, low energy, and it will have access to decentralized finance, which I think we should touch on. I think that's a profound value driver. But we should talk about what an NFT is. So maybe from your perspective, what is this revolution? What is this breakthrough? And I'll chime in after.
So the way I talk to my mother, my uncle, the family I have that isn't living and breathing this stuff full time is when I was growing up, I had a CD collection. I would buy music from our creators that I loved. And those CDs would physically sit in the collection. And then when my friends would come over, I would show off that collection. And it was basically an extension of my identity. It was a way for me to express who I was. And that expression, that identity was deeply intertwined with the fact that I owned a piece of that creator. And then for creators I particularly loved, I went beyond CDs. I would buy posters or T-shirts or these merchandise. And sometimes I would get them signed, and it would be even more rare. And for the last 20 years, in the advent of sort of digitally native experience, we've changed that ownership relationship of fandom to a social media and a streaming one. And while a lot of good has come from that, there's been a lot, I think, that is lost in those relationships. And in particular, it's the ability to really form those deep emotional identity extensions that come with owning something, knowing that you own something. And NFTs are a revolution because they enable you to provably and reliably own something in a digital construct. They create the term you commonly use, when everyone does that, digital scarcity. So that I know I can own something that is mine and no one else can take that. and it is provably created by the artist or the creator that I love, the movie that I love, and now it is mine. And I just think in some number of years, you know, the next generation will show off their NFT collection to their friends, just like I showed off my CD collection. We're starting to see this already on Twitter and other social media sites where people's avatars are their NFTs. And people are linking to their collection, and that emergent behavior is nascent. And so that's incredibly powerful. If NFTs can become the extension of your identity, the relationship with creators, that changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me run with that in a more technological direction for the nerds in the audience. NFTs are basically software objects. You can use them for an identity. You can wrap a digital work of art in them. You can have them represent some real world asset, like a car or a house. You can essentially sell or operate your car via an NFT. You could potentially, I could lend Dan my car and not let him get into the glove compartment because I haven't given him access programmatically through that, or and maybe he can lease my car through that NFT. In the art world, there are physical works of art that can have an NFT representing ownership of those works, or you can have something called generative art, where the art is purely digital. It could be completely on the blockchain itself and permanent on the blockchain, or you can arrange permanent storage of the data on something like Filecoin. And the value of these kinds of systems is that they enable the artist or the content owner to have direct access to the consumer or the fan, and they enable an artist to look at the work as a set of rights. And so artists want to keep making art. They need to keep making a living, and content owners of any kind want to do that. And so the ability to programmatically unbundle different kinds of rights, display rights, performance rights, etc., display on certain kinds of devices, all of that is going to be very exciting, and it's going to unlock a tremendous amount of value. And it's value that the artist will be able to capture. They'll be able to sell different aspects of their art, ownership, ability to copy, etc., without really selling their souls to the intermediaries that in the legacy world, the current world, capture most of the value. Let's see. So I guess I can start out with what my favorite NFT project is. It's a little bit close to home. Our project Trium created a project called Euler Beats, which is one of those generative art pieces. So it's algorithmically generated art. It's got beautiful music player, algorithmically generated music. It's got a beautiful music player, and it has this really interesting pricing and copying mechanism. And so we're really exploring different models of pricing, issuance, and distribution. Dan, what do you think is really cool that's either historically your favorite or cool projects out there?
Yeah, I think historically it's probably Data NYC, which is one of the very first that enabled artists to have a conversation with their art on blockchain. It was both a novel use of the technology, but just a great way of artistic expression that I thought was pretty cool. I'm also very biased, and I think what Joe Haig, Henny, Damien Hirst are doing with their next drop that is coming soon to Palm is going to blow some people's minds. It's using NFTs to push the artistic endeavor in a way that wasn't possible before NFTs. I think that's really promising and really exciting.
Cool. So I'm interested in talking about decentralized finance and NFTs, decentralized finance, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, and especially NFTs are crossing the chasm right now into popular culture. guy named Jeffrey Moore, about 30 years ago, wrote a book called Crossing the Chasm. And the book explored how different kinds of technological innovation is adopted into the real world, into pop culture or into finance. And we've had some of the biggest megaphones in our ecosystem, Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, Cathie Wood, Gary Vaynerchuk, and others, just get blown away by this technology. A lot of it's about NFTs, but even deeper, I think, is decentralized finance. And decentralized finance has grown up almost completely on Ethereum, and it's about fungible tokens, ERC20 tokens that you can trade really fluidly for one another. And if you look in the real world, financial markets have grown a tremendous infrastructure around fungible tokens like currencies and bonds and shares, etc. And if you also look, there's tremendous financial infrastructure around non-fungible tokens like deeds, titles, etc. So, Dan, what are your thoughts on how DeFi is going to evolve with respect to NFTs? What do you think the similarities will be to the fungible token space, and what do you think might be different in DeFi? Who's building stuff for NFTs in the DeFi space?
Yeah, so I'm cognizant of time, so I'll answer very quickly. But I think the value of assets in the real world, as you say, that are non-fungible far exceeds the value of fungible assets, would be my guess. I don't actually know if that's true, but they're just all the real estate in the world. And the financial infrastructure around that is immense. And so we're starting to see the beginnings of a NFT-based financial ecosystem. So Aave, which is one of the leaders, DeFi in fungible tokens, is now accepting non-fungible tokens into their vaults as collateral for loans, which is sort of one of the most simple primitives, the most important primitives, where people can own an asset, really invest in something, and then still find liquidity. There's a small project called NFTX that I really like, which allows you to submit a non-fungible asset to a pool and then basically sell fractions of that and get liquidity that way, which is a whole fractionalization effort, which I think is really cool. There's a whole bunch. Another one is called Upshot. Upshot is using peer prediction models to price NFTs. One of the hardest parts of doing DeFi is for NFTs is how do you get fair pricing. So that's really going to be a really important part of the infrastructure. So I think with that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to sign off, Dan, because I know everybody in the audience now wants to issue an NFT. Is there one resource where they can learn a little more?
Yeah, so palm.io is still just a landing page today, but I think tomorrow it turns into something really rich in terms of resources. You're also all welcome to email me, Dan at palm.io, and if you're interested in NFTs, we can get you connected to the right people. Make sure you get everything you need.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.